Part 77. I started my cultivation by picking up the immortal skills. Author, Banzuan Xianxia. Chapter 761. Chaos Lotus. So this is Chaos Lotus. Fen Tianyan echoed, which made Zuyun a little confused. It seems very powerful. But the question is, what's the use of this? Old tree, do you mean that my chaos seed has sprouted into Chaos Lotus? After Zuyun asked, he carefully felt the power in his body, and a drastic change had occurred. And what he was worried about, that he would become a plant, did not happen at all. In the Danshan, the Chaos Lotus, which was about to bloom, was grayish-white, and only on the bud, the five-color light flickered. Zuyun could see that the grayish-white was Chaos spiritual power, and the five-color light represented the 5 series spiritual power. Does this mean that in the future, whether he uses Chaos power or one of the 5 series spiritual power, he does not need to convert it? At this time, Huang Longshu spoke again, almost stopping Zuyun's thinking. Chaos Lotus, as far as I know, the Immortal Emperor has never found it in his entire life. Even the Immortal Emperor has never found it? Zuyun took a deep breath and said, "Old tree, what is the use of Chaos Lotus for the Immortal Emperor?" "I don't know," Huang Longshu sighed and said, "we are just the herbs planted by the Immortal Emperor in the medicine garden, how can we know so much information? But I once heard the Immortal Emperor casually say that Chaos Lotus is the most spiritual thing in the immortal world, and it only grows in chaos. Even if you get a lotus leaf, it has supreme magical effects." Zuyun was breathing rapidly. Is Chaos Lotus really that strong? But the problem is that this Chaos Lotus grows in his body. In other words, I broke through from the Jindan stage, not only did I not form a nascent soul, but I grew Chaos Lotus. And, even the Immortal Emperor didn't get it, so I think there must be some changes in my practice of 5 Elements Chaos Sutra. There is no way to verify it. It seems that I can only go to the 5 Elements sect after I reach the spirit world. Old tree, let's put the Chaos Lotus aside for now. I need to deal with things outside of my body first. The yellow dragon tree was silent and said no more. Zuyun also withdrew his mind from his body and set his eyes on the stone shelf in the cave. His eyes met the emerald green jade slip. Before Zuyun could think of anything, the green light in the jade slip immediately shone over and reached Zuyun's eyebrows. Every time you ascend to a higher realm, not only will the time flow rate difference in the immortal mansion increase by 1 level, but you will also get new information from the jade slip. Through the information in the jade slip, Zuyun knew that the next time would become 1:7, 1 hour outside, 7 hours in the immortal mansion. And then, a new skill appeared in the green light. Chaos Dragon Controlling Art. Zuyun muttered, then walked out of the cave and looked at Xianxia. At the other end of Xianxia is the dragon transformation pond. There is a little black dragon in the dragon transformation pond. He pondered for a while and knew the reason. The dragon pool is for breeding real dragons. If the original owner, as an immortal emperor, can control a real dragon, perhaps it can highlight his status. Chaos is 1, 1 gives birth to 2, 2 gives birth to 3, and 3 gives birth to all things. Chaos power is the power of the immortal world. The power of the immortal world can give birth to all things and control all things. Chaos Dragon Controlling Technique. Use chaos power to control real dragons. In the immortal world, there is no advantage. Zuyun carefully tasted the preface of this technique, and suddenly had a glimmer of understanding in his heart. Could it be that his Chaos Lotus is because of the practice of chaos power? Then, everyone in the 5 Elements sect practices the 5 Elements Chaos Sutra. After the Dan formation stage, they can also practice chaos power. Could it be that they also have Chaos Lotus? Zuyun subconsciously thought that this was impossible. From Huang Longshu's words, we know that even the Immortal Emperor has never obtained the Chaos Lotus, which shows how precious the Chaos Lotus is. In this way, Zuyun was completely sure that there was an accident in his practice of the 5 Elements Chaos Sutra. He began to recall that since he got the 5 Elements Chaos Sutra, if there was anything different, it was that he had an extra Immortal Palace to practice. But in the Immortal Palace, he also followed the routine. Wait, that's not right? Suddenly, Zuyun's eyes flashed, and he looked at the void at the edge of the Immortal Palace. There, the gray-white chaos power was particularly conspicuous against the background of the void. Could it be that the 5 elements of spiritual power combined into one is the chaos power? But later on, he practiced by directly absorbing the chaos power in the void to practice. In other words, what he practiced was pure immortal power. Chaos is 1, 1 gives birth to 2, 2 gives birth to 3, and 3 gives birth to all things. Maybe, Chaos Lotus was born because of this. Zuyun had a guess in his heart. Although there was no evidence to prove it, he was very sure that it must be related to his practice of chaos power. The same power is also divided into levels. It must be because I have cultivated my power beyond my level, so this strange change has occurred. Zuyun's mind was trembling, and he felt the immense power in his body, and his confidence suddenly became full. Originally, when he was in the Jindan stage, he could kill the Yuanying stage beyond his level. Now, I have reached the Yuanying stage, and I have cultivated the most refined chaos power, so who in this mortal world can stop me? Demon Refining Tower? Nightmare Demon? In front of absolute strength, everything is false. Zuyun was overjoyed and looked at Xianxia. He didn't care about the Chaos Dragon controlling art at this time. Instead, he quickly dodged and left the immortal mansion. Nightmare Demon? Wait until I kill you, then go save Lao Ma. Feeling that there seemed to be endless chaos power on his body, Zuyun was full of pride at this time. Holding the chaos sword in hand, he rushed up all the way to the sea. Not long after, he jumped out of the sea. There was no need to look. Zuyun's spiritual consciousness told him the direction. He saw his figure flash, and the next moment, he was already 500 steps away. This time, he didn't use the thunder escape art, but the nascent soul stage teleportation. If there were nascent soul masters here, they would definitely be shocked by Zuyun's performance. It was only the early stage of the nascent soul, but the distance of teleportation was almost more than twice that of the same realm. Even Zuyun was quite surprised. This teleportation distance is too far, cool. Putting away his thoughts, he couldn't help but smile, and said to himself, when I first learned the thunder escape technique, the scriptures said that if you want to live forever, you have to run fast, so I taught you the thunder escape technique. Finding a place to hide and practice in peace is the kingly way. If I, Zuyun, practice according to what you said in the scriptures, I'm afraid it will take a long time to reach the nascent soul. Before he finished speaking, Zuyun's mind flashed with inspiration. My search for opportunities is different from what is said in the scriptures. Why did the immortal who created the scriptures let people refine their chi step by step to improve their realm? The more Zuyun thought about it, the more suspicious he felt. Then he thought of the fact that everyone in the 5 Elements sect can practice the 5 Elements Chaos Sutra. Is there any conspiracy in it? If you practice normally according to the 5 Elements Chaos Sutra, will you really ascend in the end? What about after ascending? Zuyun couldn't help but fall into deep thought, until a golden light suddenly appeared in front of Zuyun. Zuyun, I didn't expect you to break through to the nascent soul stage. It's Aniao. He looked at Zuyun with an inexplicable expression on his face. Senior, it's just a coincidence. When Zuyun saw Aniao, his mind suddenly calmed down, and he said politely as usual. Coincidence. Aniao shook his head and said, I feel a familiar power in you, let's put it this way, it's very similar to the people of the 5 Elements sect. Zuyun's heart was shocked, and he said, Why do you say that, senior? I don't know, Aniao pondered for a moment, and said, you also know that we demon cultivators have keen perceptions. Before we get the tell, we act on instinct. Anyway, I can't tell. The feeling you give me is not much different from that of the cultivators of the Five Elements sect. When Zuyun was smiling bitterly and wondering how to explain, a cold laugh came from the coast. After searching everywhere for something, I finally found it without any effort. You guys are together again, are you trying to get back at me? The nightmare demon, transformed into a human form, suddenly appeared in front of Zuyun and Aniao, with an arrogant expression, as if looking down on the world. He has completely refined the earth spirit liquid under the Dragon Vein Mountain, and the realm of the Five Elements Chaos Sutra has reached the dance stage. Unexpectedly, Zuyun slapped him with his backhand. Quack. I started my cultivation by picking up the immortal skills. Author, Banzuan Xianxia. Chapter 762. A slap with the power of almost destroying the world was thrown towards the face, and the huge power of chaos just threw the nightmare demon straight into the sea. Wow! There was a huge splash on the sea surface. But after a moment, the nightmare demon flew back to its original position with a face full of disbelief. You also practiced the heavenly book technique. Zuyun's pupils shrank. He thought that nightmare demon would be surprised that he had broken through to the nascent soul stage, but he didn't expect that he would also feel his Five Elements Chaos Sutra. Suddenly, he raised his brows, and he started to care about it, and said calmly, what heavenly book? You do not know. The nightmare demon was immediately confused, and then said, the Five Elements of Chaos Sutra. Oh, Zuyun showed a serious expression and said, you said this, yes, I have practiced cultivation, what's the matter? That's great, Nightmare Demon immediately smiled and said, I thought I was the only one practicing in this world, but I didn't expect that fellow Taoist disciples are also members of the same Dao. Since we practice the same technique, why don't we discuss it? Come to think of it, fellow Taoists also know that if you continue to practice this technique, you can ascend directly, right? Zuyun was non-committal and seemed not to notice the sudden change of face of the nightmare demon. He said calmly, your realm is lower than mine, and I can feel that the chaos power in you is still somewhat different from mine. There is nothing to discuss. Bar. Fellow Taoist, this is wrong, Nightmare Demon said sternly, this Five Elements of Chaos Sutra focuses on the word hung, but when everyone practices, their understanding of the word hung will be somewhat different. Like my identity, I don't want to hide it from fellow Taoists, I am actually a demon cultivator, and I have no spiritual roots to practice this technique. Fellow Taoists will feel it, and of course there will be a difference. Zuyun smiled secretly in his heart, the technique you practiced was also done by mistake. But if you can practice it, it shows your scheming. His heart moved, and he asked, since you are a demon cultivator and don't practice good demon clan skills, why do you still practice our human clan skills? Fellow Taoist, I don't know. Nightmare Demon also had his own thoughts and said, this fellow Taoist, is he the demon saint? But, limited by the way of heaven, when he comes to the mortal world, he can only compare to nascent soul at most. The power of the realm. Aniao glanced at Zuyun, saw his slight gesture, and admitted it, saying, yes, I am a demon saint from the spiritual world. If you have anything to say, just tell it truthfully. Senior, please forgive me for being rude, Nightmare Demon said, being extra polite at this moment. Junior would like to ask, when Senior experienced the demon tribulation, did he choose to become an adult or continue to be a demon? Of course I am a demon, Aniao said with a half smile, didn't you see my true form at sea? There was a flash of embarrassment on Nightmare Demon's face. Although he was angry in his heart, he had no choice but to say, Senior, I just want to confirm. Demon tribulation should be very strong, right? What do you think? Nightmare Demon said, I have never experienced this before, but no one of my clan has ever passed through the demon tribulation safely, so I want to find another way to take advantage of the characteristics of my clan, and I have been practicing human skills since the Demon King realm. It's just this, I found the heavenly book technique by chance, and it happened to be suitable for practice, so I tried to practice it. The purpose is to avoid the immortal catastrophe, so that our clan can also be famous in the spiritual world. A gleam flashed in Niao's eyes. Not only him, but also Zuyun didn't believe what the nightmare said, but on the surface, he couldn't find any reason. Zuyunksu stepped forward and said, whether you can break through the realm of Demon Saint, what does it have to do with me? Fellow Taoist, don't speak so aggressively. The nightmare demon laughed twice and said, you and I are the only ones in this mortal world who practice this kind of technique. It will be beneficial for you and me to discuss it with each other. The road to immortality is bumpy, but we are the same way. If we travel together, maybe we can find something in the spiritual world. What about a broader world? However, the nightmare demon acted intimately, and Zuyun became more disbelieving. The country is easy to change, but the nature is hard to change. Unless he realizes it thoroughly, he will not believe a word the nightmare monster says. But Zuyun didn't know what his ulterior purpose was. And, since the nightmare demon didn't say it, then just stop talking. The most important thing is that the chaos power between the two is still different. The 5 elements chaos sutra practiced by nightmare demon is still an abridged version, which may not be of any help to Zuyun. In addition, the nightmare demon has the intention to kill Zuyun, then there is no need to keep the nightmare demon. Zuyun concentrated his mind, but he didn't expect that he was immediately discovered by the nightmare demon after he showed just a little murderous intent. Fellow Taoist, do you want to take action? The nightmare demon suddenly opened its mouth, which made Zuyun startled. At this time, the figure of the nightmare demon suddenly disappeared in front of Zuyun. Fooled! Zuyun exclaimed, immediately teleported and chased after the nightmare demon. Niao did not catch up. As a demon saint, he could definitely feel that the nightmare demon could no longer threaten Zuyun. Then there is no need for me to enter the Dongsheng realm without disturbing its influence. Niao watched Zuyun pursue him, and he himself returned to the island. This kid Zuyun may really be able to resolve the grudges of heaven and earth. At this time, within Zuyun's body, the power of chaos was constantly rotating under the roots of the chaos lotus. Compared to the Dan formation stage, his chaos power operates more smoothly, and sometimes his body reacts immediately to what he thinks in his mind. The speed was so fast that Zuyun couldn't adapt to it for a while. But at the moment, there is no problem in just chasing the nightmare monster. Soon, the dragon head of Longmei Mountain once again fell into Zuyun's sight. And this time, his flight was no longer affected. He passed the dragon head without any delay and rushed towards the nightmare monster. Who would have thought that the figure of the nightmare monster suddenly disappeared out of thin air? Zuyun had been releasing his spiritual consciousness, but he could not find any trace of the nightmare monster. This is... Zuyun stopped suddenly, and after feeling it carefully, his expression changed. Formation. When he read these 2 words, the crazy laughter of the nightmare monster came from all directions. Boy, what if you have practiced the heavenly book technique to the nascent soul stage? This king has occupied the ancestral land of the dragon clan and has already mastered the formation of the land protection here. Have a good taste of this dragon trap formation. When your strength is exhausted, this king will use the soul search method to see the secret in your mind, he. After the voice fell, there was no news from the nightmare monster. At the same time, Zuyun found that the mist around him had become thicker at some point. This mist was very similar to the mist in the sword formation, so Zuyun's spiritual consciousness could not penetrate it at all. A mere formation, you want to trap me? Zuyun's eyes condensed and he landed on the ground, but he never thought that his feet seemed not to be on the ground, but on the waves. Up and down, constantly up and down. He looked down and was surprised to find that the place where he was standing seemed to be alive. Is this, the dragon vein, alive? Zuyun exclaimed, this is clearly a mountain, how could it be alive? Illusion. Impossible. This illusion is too real. But no matter what formation it is, watch me break it. Zuyun immediately used the breaking void spirit eye technique to see through the illusion under his feet. In an instant, he was stunned again. Under the rocky ground, he saw a long vertebra extending to both sides. Could it be that, this dragon vein is a real dragon? The Pakuling Jingju couldn't be wrong, and this formation, is also called the dragon trapping formation. So, this dragon vein is a dragon? Thinking of this, Zuyun couldn't help but take a breath. Is he capable of dealing with such a huge real dragon? Dragon rise. At this time, the voice of the nightmare demon came again, but this time, he was trying to control the dragon vein. As his voice fell, Zuyun's feet suddenly tumbled, throwing him into the sky. His vision was blocked by the fog, and even his Pakuling Jingju couldn't see through it. But his instinctive perception, which was stronger than others, made him immediately realize that there would be danger under his feet. He made a prompt decision and prepared to teleport immediately. The moment his figure disappeared, he saw a huge dragon head with scarlet eyes, and his bloody mouth swallowed up all the clouds and fog where he was. Horror! Zuyun's figure appeared from 500 steps away. He was still frightened. The eyes of the dragon head seemed to see through him. Boom, boom. Another loud noise came from under his feet. Zuyun's eyes narrowed. Isn't this dragon vein coming too fast? Without time to think, Zuyun teleported again and hid far away. But in the dragon trap array, the dragon vein followed him like a shadow. No matter where Zuyun hid, the dragon head would appear from under him. If I get entangled in the array, my chaotic power will be exhausted sooner or later. I can only seek to break the array, but this fog can't even be seen through by the breaking void spirit eye technique. How can I find the array pattern? Zuyun pondered hard, and under his feet was the dragon head chasing him relentlessly. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. I started my cultivation by picking up the immortal skills. Author, Banzuan Xianxia. Chapter 763. You can't even see the formation pattern. How do you break the formation? Zuyun meditated hard, and with his knowledge of formations, if he wanted to break the formation, he had to understand the formation patterns in order to unlock them. Nowadays, there is fog all over the place, just like I was under the misty sword cliff at that time. The same is true for the confused sword cliff, and the key to the confused sword formation lies in the middle stone pillar, which is the main formation I. And the confused sword formation was born out of the Tang family's confused soul formation. Zuyun gradually got a clue, and while dodging, he took out the solution to the formation that he had almost forgotten from the ring. This is how everyone in the Tang family's formations of the past generations wrote down their understanding of the formations. Zuyun once read through it, but his attainments were still shallow at that time and he wanted to return it to the Tang family, so he did not read it deeply. Later, I followed Tang Liwen to learn formations, but more importantly, I learned how to draw the great formation of stars, and how to draw spiritual talismans. The way of formation is nothing more than using the principles of heaven. No matter how the formation changes, it will never deviate from its original principles. Master's 9 transformations and 9 Yang's formation is like this, and Tang's star movement formation is like this. Then this dragon trap formation should also be like this. Zuyun concentrated his mind and set his sights on the dragon head that was constantly chasing him. Perhaps, the location of this array of eyes is the dragon head. So, this dragon head attack is so fierce, how can I subdue him? Dragon head? Zhu Yun's eyes lit up. Didn't he just learn the Chaos Dragon control technique? The ancestral land of the dragon clan, dragon veins. Then I will be your dragon, come and try it at Yu. After finally finding a way to crack it, Zhu Yun just did it. Chaos Dragon control technique came into his mind not long ago. He just thought about it for a moment and already learned the basics. Chaos is 1, giving birth to 2, 2 giving birth to 3, 3 giving birth to all things. Driven by the power of chaos, you can control thousands of dragons. Zhu Yun recited it silently for a few times, and had already memorized the key points of the technique in his heart. At this moment, the dragon head rushed out from under his feet again, opening its mouth full of huge teeth. Chaos Force. Zhu Yun raised his eyebrows, reached out and slapped a palm, and on the chaotic lotus leaf that was about to bloom in his body, 5 colors of brilliance suddenly bloomed. Under the stems and leaves, the gray chaotic power, like gurgling spring water, quickly surged from the 9 veins into Zhu Yun's palms. This looks like a palm from the chaos palm, but it is not a chaos palm. The power of the palm is to subdue the dragon head. Bang! A different kind of chaotic force hit the dragon's head, and there was a sudden pause. Almost at the same moment, Zhu Yun roared and spit out a word. Drop. That's right, it was spit out. A word descend, the same gray-white color as the chaos force, glowing with gray-white light, was printed between the 2 corners of the dragon's head. Hold head high. As if it felt threatened, the dragon head actually let out a dragon roar. The sound was extremely harsh. It not only made Zhu Yun's heart tremble, but also directly dispersed the word drop formed by the chaotic force in an instant. The first level of Chaos Dragon control technique is not enough, and I can't learn to the second level at this time. Zhu Yun looked tense and analyzed the current situation. If this is the case, then there is no way to break the formation. At this moment, Huang Longshu reminded him. Zhu Yun, use the dragon whip. This old and urgent voice sounded like the sound of nature to Zhu Yun's ears. That's right, since it's a dragon, then of course I can use the dragon whip. Zhu Yun was ecstatic. How could he forget this treasure? Immediately, he stretched out his hand, and a flash of black appeared in his hand, and he threw it away. Crack! Long Shao originally thought that by dispersing the word Zhang, he could swallow Zhu Yun in one gulp, but he never thought that the situation would suddenly change. The dragon beating whip has an extremely mysterious coercive force on the dragon clan, but the dragon head can't stop at this time, as if it has hit the dragon beating whip. Hold head high. After the sound of the whip, the painful roar of the dragon sounded immediately. The dragon's head seemed to have seen a natural enemy. A look of fear appeared in its giant eyes. It shrank and jumped towards the ground. But how could Zhu Yun give him a chance to escape? If the dragon head is hidden and he is trapped here only by the dragon trap formation, even if Zhu Yun breaks the formation, it will take a lot of time. Drop. He opened his lips and uttered one word again, then moved towards the dragon's forehead to suppress it. The dragon's head has strange eyes, and the word surrender cannot hurt him, but if he responds to this word, he will definitely not be able to escape the whip of the dragon whip. In such hesitation, Long Shao was a little slower. Not only was the word Zhang stuck on the dragon's head and forehead, but the dragon whip fell on the head, just on top of the word Zhang, as if the word was stamped on it. Hold head high. The dragon head made a sound of pain, and his carved eyes were closed tightly. Done. Zhu Yun was overjoyed when he saw the dragon's head suddenly fall to the ground and start writhing. The clouds and mist all around also surged. Zhu Yun stood in the void, holding the dragon beating whip tightly in his left hand and the chaos sword in his right hand. He also needed to beware of the sudden attack by the nightmare demon. But in fact, the nightmare demon who was hiding in the dark and saw the scene with his own eyes was already shocked. Not only that, he also suffered backlash from the formation because of driving the trapped dragon formation. This boy, the use of the word drop is clearly made of the power of chaos. In this way, his attainments in the 5 Elements Chaos Sutra are far higher than mine. And this boy is hostile to me, don't stay. The nightmare demon knew that if he continued to control the dragon trapping formation, the backlash would be even stronger. So he simply took back his power and used it to heal himself. I remember seeing this kind of injury in a medical book. In the dark, the nightmare demon was confident that Zuyun could not find him, so he sat down in his hiding place, and an unnamed medical book appeared in his hand out of thin air. He turned the pages with his spiritual sense and soon found the page that treated the backlash of the formation, and began to use his spiritual power to heal himself. A white light flashed on his body, slowly helping him repair the backlash damage in his body. Unfortunately, he had no idea how powerful Zuyun was. He did not break this formation by force, but guessed that the dragon head was the main formation so he broke it with this. In an instant, Zuyun discovered the location of the nightmare demon, and after only a moment of thought, he immediately rushed over. In the previous encounter, he could not resist his palm, so the nightmare demon was not his opponent at all, so what was there to worry about? Zuyun's figure flashed, and the next moment, he appeared in front of the nightmare demon. But Zuyun's eyes were attracted by the nameless medical book in his hand. How did you find this place? The scream of the nightmare demon brought Zuyun back to his senses. Isn't it easy to find you? Zuyun raised his eyebrows and slapped out with his palm. The huge chaotic force made the nightmare demon's heart shattered. All his strength was used to heal his body. How could he have the spare energy to deal with it at this time? But he never thought that Zuyun's palm power would suddenly change into a claw and snatch the medical book in his hand. The nightmare demon came back to his senses. If he didn't run now, when would he run? Boy, wait, I will be back. In an instant, the nightmare demon turned into a black smoke and disappeared between heaven and earth. All that was left was the stench of fishy and sour smell. Damn it! Zuyun cursed angrily, wondering why he didn't kill the nightmare demon first, but let him run away. With the gloomy nature of the nightmare demon, not to mention whether he can find him, even if he meets him again, I am afraid he will not have such a good chance. It's all this medical book. He looked down, and there was no doubt that this was the book that the Medicine King Valley Master asked him to find. I didn't expect it to be picked up by the nightmare demon. No wonder he was able to cure Aunt Tang's eyes. Zuyun murmured, and the 2 purposes of coming to Dongsheng realm have been achieved, but now, can I leave? After pondering for a moment, he decided to kill the nightmare demon before leaving. Otherwise, who knows if he will take revenge on the human race. At this time, Yusha realm, the land of Juyu. With the spread of black air and the roar of countless monsters, this holy land of Yusha realm was finally opened. Countless cultivators. Whether it is the demon cultivators of Yusha realm or the righteous cultivators who came here and did not return, they all rushed into it. This will be the grand occasion of Yusha realm. Very few people noticed that this time, people from the Yaluo demon sect and the Moyin sect did not participate. I started my cultivation by picking up the immortal skills. Author, Banzuan Xianxia. Chapter 764. Strange, why didn't Nangongyan and Yutangzi bring anyone here? An old man with a calm expression said to the people around him. Sect Master, Yutangzi has stepped down as the sect leader. A few days ago, it seems that a disciple who went to the Ya realm came back and broke through the nascent soul stage, so she was asked to take over. Maybe they are not free. The old man was non-committal and said, the Yaluo demon sect is indifferent by nature, but when the Juyu land opens, there will be an opportunity to find a passage to the spiritual world and enter it. I think they should not let this opportunity go. Sect Master, there is new news at this time. Another young nascent soul came over and said softly, the Silver Snake Sword Master of the Silver Sword Demon Sect didn't bring anyone here either. I heard before that the Silver Snake Sword Master seemed to be provoking the Yologo Demon Sect. The two sides fought fiercely, and no one found the sword cultivator again. Oh! The old man raised his eyebrows, and there was a sparkle in his cloudy eyes, and said, to be able to make the Yologo Demon Sect do something to destroy the sect, I think that old witch Xianxia must have touched the Yologo Demon Sect's bad luck. If this news is true, maybe they are recuperating, which makes sense. So, is there any news from the Demon Seal Sect? Everyone shook their heads. When the old man saw this, he turned around and said, what happens to them has nothing to do with us. It was said before that it was a war between two realms. The sect's soul control pill has been used up. Go in and collect some soul grass. Otherwise, wait. I'm afraid it will take a lot of time to open it next time. Yes, Sect Master. All the nascent souls respectfully accepted the order, and then ordered the sect disciples behind them to start taking action. At the same time, Sun Qinyang hid among some casual cultivators early on and sneaked into the Juyu land. In fact, it can't be said to be a gang. The land of Juyu has always been open and does not belong to any sect. It is said to be opened, but it is actually the lifting of the natural restrictions in the depths. After entering, you can obtain older and rarer treasures of heaven, materials, and earth. Even if you are lucky, you can find elixirs that can only be produced in the spiritual world. Because this Juyu land is basically the same place as the Juyu land in the spiritual world. In other words, the part of the spiritual world can be regarded as the center, and the part belonging to the Yasha realm can be regarded as the periphery. Sun Qinyang had already heard about this information, so as soon as he opened it, he headed deeper. Although she was only in the Dan formation stage and her speed was not as fast as those of nascent souls, she was better because she did not hunt for treasures and did not need to stop and go. Instead, she was at the forefront among many monks. There will be no conflicts with others because of this. But what she didn't expect was, there are 3 other people, although their goals are different, their direction is the same. About an hour later, they met. Feng, Senior Feng. Sun Qinyang was also a little stunned when she looked at the iconic sloppy hair. Hey, little girl, why have you come to the 9 Netherlands, and, are you so deep into it? Feng and he stopped and was a little surprised. Senior, I came here to practice. I heard that there are many monsters in Juyu land, so I wanted to come and have a look. Sun Qinyang knew about the relationship between Zuyun and Feng and he, so she had nothing to worry about and truthfully told her purpose. At the same time, she carefully looked at the 2 people beside her. Feng Qinjiang's body had the same aura as Feng and he's, so it was not difficult to guess his identity. But Xianxia made Sun Qinyang secretly on guard. She almost died in the Fire Dragon sect. Little girl, do you just want to experience it? That's easy, you can go with us. Feng and he felt a little ashamed of Zuyun. He thought that since this girl was released from the heavenly painting scroll by him and appeared in the Juyu land again, it might be Zuyun's instruction. He also needs the sword body as a certificate of surrender for him to return to the Tian family in the spiritual world. Sun Qinyang's eyes lit up when she heard Feng and he's invitation. To be honest, it was okay for her to fight against beasts during her first Dan formation stage, but what if she had to fight against people? She is really unsure. Although Xianxia's Fire Dragon sect aura made her a little worried, but with Feng and he as a shield, there should be no problem. Thank you very much, Senior. Sun Qinyang smiled sweetly, bowed and said. It doesn't matter, we have to go deep into it, but instead of practicing, we go, to see the scenery. When it came to his lips, Feng and he changed his words. Sun Qinyang didn't take it seriously. For her, as long as her colleagues took care of her, that would be fine. A group of 4 people marched along the dense forest. From time to time they encountered some magical beasts on the road, and Sun Qinyang would take the initiative to kill them. This saved the 3 of them a lot of energy, and at the same time, they also gained some understanding of Sun Qinyang's abilities. Dad, if my guess is correct, the sword in her hand was also refined by you, right? Feng Qingyang inherited the skills of the sword refining sect, so he could naturally tell the sword. Moreover, when Sun Qinyang uses her sword, a little wind energy will flow out from time to time. Maybe others can't feel it, but as a wind spirit root, he can see it at a glance. That's right, that's the wind dragon sword. This girl is pretty good at swordsmanship, and she's good looking. Fortunately, she's not from the Silver Sword Demon sect, otherwise. Feng An he said and shook his head. Obviously he had also heard about the bad reputation of the Silver Sword Demon sect. Several hours later, Sun Qinyang relied on her superb swordsmanship to kill dozens of magical beasts and harvest some magical beast inner elixirs. Feng An he said that the Warcraft inner elixir could be exchanged for some spiritual stones, so Sun Qinyang put it away. But what they didn't expect was that when Sun Qinyang killed another monster and took its inner elixir, several black shadows flew over from behind them and landed directly in front of Sun Qinyang. Jidan stage, sword cultivator. The leader was a late Yuanying stage cultivator. Seeing the sword in Sun Qinyang's hand and her delicate face, he raised his eyebrows and said calmly, "Fairy, can you transfer this magic pill to me?" Sun Qinyang was willing to exchange these for spirit stones after hearing Feng Anhe's words. She immediately said, "Since the senior has said so, of course I can. I don't know how much this inner pill costs. Just give me some spirit stones." Who knew that the Yuanying stage cultivator's face turned cold, stretched out his hand in the void, and snatched the inner pill, sneering, "The Silver Sword Demon sect is gone, and you still dare to ask for spirit stones." Behind him, there was also a Yuanying stage cultivator who grinned and said, "Little girl, as long as you want spirit stones, it means we don't bully the weak." Sun Qinyang was so stubborn. If she hadn't seen that the other party had several Yuanying stage cultivators, how could she have been so tolerant? And the Silver Sword Demon sect had a bad reputation. How could she not see the meaning of these people's smiles? Immediately, she said calmly, "Senior, I am not from the Silver Sword Demon sect." "It doesn't matter whether it is or not," the late Yuanying waved his hand and said, "I want this inner elixir, do you have any objection?" "I dare not." Sun Qinyang suppressed her anger. She knew that the other party had 3 Yuanyings, while she only had 2. Not only were they fewer in number, but their realms were also relatively weaker. Let alone Feng Anhe, Xianxia was only in the early stage, not to mention that Xianxia's attitude towards her had always been lukewarm, so Sun Qinyang never counted on her at all. But Sun Qinyang's tolerance did not let these Yuanyings give up. The late Yuanying actually reached out and touched Sun Qinyang's face. "Since you don't dare, can I do something more extreme?" At this time, Feng Anhe finally couldn't stand it anymore, but he didn't dare to fight, and he was afraid that Sun Qinyang would be humiliated and he couldn't explain to Zhu Yun, so he stepped forward and said loudly, "My fellow Taoist, please give me some face. The little girl is definitely not from the Silver Sword Demon sect." The face of the late nascent soul cultivator sank, and he raised his head suddenly, saying sinisterly, "Who didn't pull his pants tight and let your old thing out?" At this time, everyone's face changed, and these demon cultivators stepped forward and put their hands on their waists. As long as Feng Anhe showed any signs of taking action, they would immediately take action. Feng Anhe gritted his teeth, his face was extremely ugly. The demon cultivator couldn't help but laugh wildly, and then said contemptuously, "Letting you righteous cultivators come to the 9 netherworld is considered to be my Yisha realm giving you face. But you old thing, still want our Yukoi demon sect to give you face? Where do you get the courage?" The four words Yukoi demon sect were like a sledgehammer, hitting Feng Anhe and the other two people's chests fiercely. Wu Chidao died in their people realm. So, these people are deliberately looking for trouble? Seeing that Feng Anhe and others seemed to be intimidated by the name of Yukoi demon sect, several demon cultivators no longer cared about Sun Qiniang, and approached Feng Anhe with a sneer. Unexpectedly, a sudden change occurred at this time. A slight dragon roar suddenly appeared, and the sword energy followed. With a puff, the late nascent soul felt something penetrated his chest. The magic power collapsed. He looked down, his face full of disbelief. I was actually killed by a sword cultivator in the Jindan stage? Warm reminder, if you find that clicking the next page will force you to jump to other websites, please use the chapter error or contact us at the bottom to inform us. We will handle it as soon as possible. Thank you for your understanding. I started my cultivation by picking up the immortal skills. Author, Banzuan Xianxia. Chapter 765. This scene shocked everyone. How could a sword cultivator in the Dan formation stage be able to kill someone in the late nascent soul stage? How did they know that the sword in Sun Qiniang's hand was a spiritual sword? It was still Feng Anhe, who was tailor-made for Qi fusion, who was at the peak of the late nascent soul stage. Under the pressure of the Chaos Sword, the Wind Dragon Sword Spirit recognized Sun Qiniang as its master and could serve as her emissary willingly. Moreover, Feng Anhe also taught Sun Qiniang completely how to use the Feng Long Sword. Otherwise, how could she dare to go to the Nine Netherlands alone during her short period of forming pills? Originally, Sun Qiniang had never thought of taking action. However, when these nascent soul stage tried to humiliate her, her strong temper could no longer control herself. At the same time, under the carelessness of this demon cultivator, he completely exposed his back to Sun Qiniang, which finally made Sun Qiniang unable to bear it any longer. This sword can be said to be her strongest sword. Borrowing the power of the spiritual sword, it is no problem to kill nascent soul. Little girl, you. Feng Anhe was completely frightened. He didn't have much fighting experience. If he took advantage of this moment to take action quickly, he might still have a chance. But when he murmured these half-sentences, the other three demon cultivators also reacted quickly and turned around to attack Sun Qiniang. Unexpectedly, Sun Qiniang was determined. After she chose to take action, she knew that it was a life-or-death situation, and she had already escaped a few steps away with sword steps. But she is not Zuyun. No matter how mysterious your sword steps are, can you escape Yuanying's teleportation? Immediately, the three demon cultivators formed a pin shape, directly blocking all Sun Qiniang's escape routes. Refining her puppet and handing it over to the sect master. A nascent soul said coldly, reaching out to grab Sun Qiniang. He wanted to restrain Sun Qiniang and then feed her the puppet soul control pill. When Sun Qiniang was blocked, she knew she was going to die, so she simply slashed the hand with her sword across the front and back. At the same time, she yelled angrily, "Senior Feng, do you think they will let you go if I die? Why don't you take action quickly?" Feng and Meng woke up with a jolt. What Sun Qiniang said makes sense. "Son, do it." After the words fell, Feng Anhe quickly rushed forward. At the same time, several spiritual swords protruded from his side. These are all spiritual swords he refined. However, in his hands, the power of these spiritual swords is not as powerful as the Wind Dragon Sword of Sun Qiniang. As for Feng Qingyang, he quickly used the flying shuttle. He knew very well that when his father called him to take action, he was not asking him to participate in the fight in the realm of nascent soul. He doesn't deserve it. Not qualified either. Therefore, his purpose is to use the shuttle to rescue Sun Qiniang. Then, take Feng Anhe out of the battle. Xianxia, go help Dad. When Feng Qingyang stepped onto the shuttle, she immediately said to Zhou Xianxia. Xianxia hesitated for a moment and finally moved. Because Sun Qinyang's words also touched her heart. She is in the early stage of nascent soul, and she may not be able to escape. All because of Sun Qinyang's action. At this moment, she was extremely resentful of Sun Qinyang. She had nothing to do with her, but she was dragged into it. You go and deal with it, I'll deal with this swordswoman first. The demonic cultivator saw Sun Qinyang's wind dragon sword killing his companions with his own eyes. He felt wary in his heart. He drew back his hand and quickly reached out again. The target was still Sun Qinyang's pink neck. At this moment, Sun Qinyang could no longer dodge and was strangled by the neck. Her breathing was almost stagnant, and all her strength was suppressed by death. She no longer had the strength to resist, let alone self-destruct to prevent being turned into a puppet. Unexpectedly, as soon as the monk took out a puppet-controlling soul pill, he let out a cry of surprise. Then, he laughed wildly, and his laughter immediately shocked his companions, Feng and he, and others. Ha ha ha, I originally thought that the puppet control soul pill was not enough, but I didn't expect that you swallowed nearly 100 pills at some time. In this way, you are a good puppet. After laughing, he directly used the puppet soul control technique to form a connection with the imprint on Sun Qinyang's soul and control it. In just a moment, Sun Qinyang's eyes lost their luster and she turned into a puppet without a mind of her own. But at this time, Feng Qinjiang's body riding the shuttle had just emerged. It's another pill-forming stage. Do you people in the Peepa realm really think you are right? If you are really in the pill-forming stage, you can do whatever you want in the Yasha realm. He stretched out his hand and threw Feng Qingyang away. At the same time, he shouted in a deep voice, "Go, kill him." As soon as the words fell, Sun Qinyang's whole body flashed with sword light, and with a whoosh, she chased Feng Qingyang. The sword has been raised, and when it falls, Feng Qingyang will die. No. Feng and he screamed in fear and quickly broke away from the demon cultivator fighting with him and chased Feng Qingyang. But before she could catch up, Sun Qinyang, under the control of the demonic cultivator, struck Feng and Gukong with a backhand sword. This sword can cut him in half. Feng and he knew that Feng Longsword had such ability. But at this moment, what he felt was a supreme sword power. A kind of sword power that comes from the depths of the soul. Sword body. Feng and he screamed. I originally thought that Zuyun was a sword body. But I didn't expect that Sun Qinyang would be too. Next to him, Xianxia, who was fighting with another demon cultivator, also raised his eyebrows. She had asked Feng and he about the news of the spirit world, and also knew about the Feng family in Tianweishan. There is only one person in a million who has a sword body. But the sword body is difficult to be discovered. Only those who have practiced swordsmanship and have achieved success can be recognized under certain circumstances. Sun Qinyang did not know that she had a sword body. She practiced swordsmanship by chance, all because of Jian Tianming. But because Jian Tianming repeatedly fought with her for control of the body, gradually creating Sun Qinyang's sword body. At this time, Sun Qinyang became a puppet, and after receiving the command, she would subconsciously use the strongest power in her body. The power of the sword body was also instantly stimulated, and was recognized by Feng and he. In a flash, Feng and made a decision in his heart. Sun Qinyang, it's time to save her. As long as he saved her, he would no longer need to ask Zuyun for help after he arrived in the spirit world. The most important thing is that whether Zuyun is a sword body is all his guess, and it has not been confirmed. But now, how can he rescue Sun Qinyang from this demon cultivator? Not to mention, Sun Qinyang is chasing Feng Qingyang at this moment. In less than a breath, countless thoughts flashed through Feng and he's mind. Never mind, I have to kill them at any cost, and then rescue Sun Qinyang. It doesn't matter whether she is a puppet or not, as long as she is alive and has a sword body, the family can explain it. Feng Anhe gritted his teeth, dodged Sun Qiniang's sword attack, and turned to control the spirit swords behind him, flying towards the remaining 3 demon cultivators. Each person got 2 swords. Bang! 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 Several explosions sounded in succession, and the spiritual power surged in this open space. The momentum was so great that it directly broke many towering ancient trees and scared away countless birds and beasts that lived here. Xianxia didn't know why Feng Anhe chose to self-destruct these spirit swords, but her opponent had already been affected, so she quickly used her magical power, and a fire dragon took the opportunity to engulf the distracted demon cultivator. Dead. Almost at the same time, the demon cultivators who were chasing Feng Anhe and controlling Sun Qiniang were also affected. The power of the spirit sword self-destruction is incomparable to ordinary power. This is equivalent to the self-destruction of a Yuanying stage. The roar was fierce. Xianxia chose to protect herself at the first time, and Feng Anhe took advantage of the surging spiritual power and rushed towards Sun Qiniang, who was also shaken by the aftermath. Looking for death. The demon cultivator spurted blood. The spirit sword self-destruction had already shaken his mind, and he lost control of Sun Qiniang in an instant. Suddenly, he vented all his anger on Feng Anhe. Kill him, kill him. Made of blood, a strange black door suddenly appeared in front of the demon cultivator, and cold and ruthless eyes shone through it. Then, neat footsteps sounded, and several puppets in the early stage of the nascent soul walked out of the black door. Kill! 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 These puppets roared in their mouths, flew up with murderous intent, and then rushed towards Feng Anhe. They all held long spears in their hands, and when they flew, they shot at Feng Anhe. And Feng Anhe could no longer turn around, let alone escape. If he was hit, he would definitely die. But at this time, a scroll broke through the air, and when it flew behind Feng Anhe, it suddenly unfolded the scroll. The demonic sect of the puppet control. Looking for death. It was Nangong Ting Feng. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. I started my cultivation by picking up the immortal skills. Author, Banzuan Xianxia. Chapter 766. 9 Netherworld was where Nangong Ting Feng asked Xianxia and Feng Qingyang to come. After arriving at the hiding place, Nangong Ting Feng found Feng Anhe's message, saying that they took advantage of the opening of the 9 Netherworld to go deep into it and wait for Nangong Ting Feng to come. Knowing that Feng Anhe was also here, Nangong Ting Feng was extremely excited. She had wanted to see Feng Anhe countless times in the hundreds of years in Yusha realm. But she didn't expect that after finally meeting him, she saw a puppet from the Yugui demon sect. Moreover, she had to attack Feng Anhe. Nangong Ting Feng was a member of the Demon Seal sect after all, and he was also known as the Ting Feng Demon Lord in Yusha realm. Of course, she would not take the Yugui demon sect seriously. Ting Feng Demon Lord. The cultivator recognized him immediately, hurriedly stopped the puppets and companions, stepped forward, and said in a deep voice, Ting Feng Demon Lord, is there any misunderstanding? Nangong Ting Feng said he was looking for death as soon as he came, and they didn't know where he had offended him. Misunderstanding. Nangong Ting Feng sneered and said, you dare to touch my Nangong Ting Feng's people, isn't that courting death? He looked arrogant and didn't take them seriously at all. The demon cultivator's face was very ugly. He stretched out his hand and clasped his fists, and apologized directly. Sorry, Demon Lord Ting Feng, we didn't know, please forgive us. Nangong Ting Feng didn't want to fight either. After the backlash of his natal spirit weapon in the battle between the two realms, his injuries were not completely healed. To put it bluntly, he was actually strong on the outside but weak on the inside. Get lost. Demon Lord Ting Feng, goodbye. The three demon cultivators felt very aggrieved, but there was nothing they could do. The demon seal sect was in its heyday, and they couldn't compare to the demon Yukui sect. In addition, Nangong Tingfeng was a veteran at the peak of the late nascent soul stage, with great strength. If they still had 4 people, they could fight him, but now, it was obviously not possible. The demon cultivator took his puppet away, but unexpectedly, Feng and he suddenly said, "Ting Feng, leave that little girl here." Nangong Ting Feng was stunned, but then he looked at Sun Qiniang. Seeing that her eyes were dull, but she was holding a spiritual sword in her hand, and her strength was only at the Jindan stage, he couldn't help but frown and said, "Stop." The 3 of them stopped in a hurry, daring to be angry but not to say anything. "Untie the puppet seal on her body, and you can leave safely. Demon Lord Ting Feng, forgive us for being powerless. After becoming a puppet, no one can do it except our sect master who has the ability to unlock the puppet seal." The demon cultivator gritted his teeth and said. He was telling the truth, and he was afraid that Nangong Tingfeng would embarrass him because of this. And he, Nangong Tingfeng, turned his head and said, "What is the origin of this little girl? If I go to see the other sect master for her, I'm afraid it will take a lot of time." How could she be afraid of wasting time? What she feared was that the other sect leader saw through her true colors. If she helped the younger generation to vent his anger, she would have no way to stop him. Feng and he saw that Nangong Tingfeng had something to hide, but he would not ask too much in front of outsiders. Instead, he said, "This is Zhu Yun's friend. He cannot be their puppet." Nangong Tingfeng understood. If she was Zhu Yun's, she must stay. But it was impossible for him to meet the other sect leader, so he reached out and put Sun Qiniang into the painting heaven scroll. "Okay, you can go now." He still had to stay in the 9 netherworld for some time. It was not appropriate to kill people and make enemies for no reason. The 3 of them were as if they had been pardoned. They bowed and saluted and quickly fled. When the place was quiet again, Feng and he leaned close to Nangong Tingfeng's ear and said bluntly, "This girl is Zhu Yun's friend, and she is also a sword body." Sword body? Nangong Tingfeng was confused at first, but then his face was ecstatic, and he said, "Then you don't need to sneak out after returning to your family." Feng and he smiled and nodded. If there were no juniors here, Nangong Tingfeng would have wanted to hug Feng and he at this moment. Even if the 2 of them stood together and looked extremely mismatched, but in the eyes of lovers, beauty is in the eyes of lovers, and she knew why Feng and he was so sloppy. "By the way, let's go to the outer world." "It doesn't matter. Our family needs the sword body, and we will definitely find a way to unlock this puppet seal. Moreover, our family wants to reuse the sword body and make a peerless sword for it, so as to help our family do something, and then we can go with her. By then, Zhu Yun may thank us." Great, Nangong Tingfeng has begun to look forward to the future, living with Feng and he and pursuing the great way together. "By the way," Feng An said after calming down, "you let them come here. Do you want them to go through the passage of Yusha realm and reach the 9 netherworld of the spirit realm?" When it comes to business, Nangong Tingfeng also said seriously, "Yes, I come to the 9 netherworld once a year, and every time I come, I go to the deepest part. After hundreds of years, I finally found a weak point between the 2 realms. I can take Xingyang and her there, but you, when you reach the nascent soul stage, you can only go to the spirit realm through the passage of Peepa realm." As she said, she stuffed the Huatian scroll into Feng and he's hands. After a lot of twists and turns, Sun Qiniang entered the painting heaven scroll again. And the painting heaven scroll was back in Feng and he's hands. Feng and he took a deep breath and said, "Then I will watch you enter the spiritual world channel and then return to Peepa realm." Well, Nangong Tingfeng's eyes softened and said, "At most 3 to 5 years, we will meet in the spiritual world, not 10 years. Feng and he was also very much looking forward to it, saying, "With the sword body, my family will definitely give me the greatest permission and will not restrict my actions. Then, you will wait for me at the other end of the 9 netherworld. After the two of them finished talking in front of their son and Xianxia as if no one was around, they walked in front of Feng Qingyang. Qingyang, Feng, and he ordered, "Follow your mother and wait for me in the 9 netherworld." Feng Qingyang looked puzzled and said, "Dad, the family you are talking about, is our Feng family from the spirit world." "Yes, we are the Feng family in the spirit world, and our family is in the sky." Feng Qingyang had never heard of these place names. Although Feng and he asked him to take over the position of the head of the family, these things have not been passed down. Now, they can all go to the spirit world. The suppressed sky fire dragon in Huayden Valley escaped, and there was no need for their branch to continue to defend Huayden Valley. And, this matter must not be known to the family, otherwise it would be a serious crime. However, Feng and he didn't care. As long as he hid Feng Qingyang, would the family know? Definitely not. Then he didn't need to let Feng Qingyang stay alone in Peeper Realm, but he went to the spirit world with Nangong Ting Feng. "Then why don't you take me back?" Feng Qingyang has always had some prejudice against Feng and he. But at this time, Feng and he didn't want to explain, or rather, he couldn't explain. Nangong Ting Feng coughed twice, signaling him not to ask more questions, and said, "Qingyang, it's not so easy to go back to my family, you and mother should go to the spirit world first." Nangong Ting Feng had already spoken, and Feng Qingyang had to swallow back all the questions in his heart. The four of them, with Nangong Ting Feng leading the way, took a detour into a small path and walked towards the depths. And the leader of the Yugui demon sect also received the news of the death of his chief disciple. "You said, Nangong Ting Feng supported a few righteous cultivators. Moreover, those righteous cultivators also killed your eldest brother. First, Wu Chideo died inexplicably. Then, in the 9 netherworld again." The old man's eyes suddenly flashed with cold light. "We, the Yugui demon sect, have always been at peace with people in Yushu territory and never want to conflict with others. But now, someone has come to Juyo territory and is riding on our heads. This breath cannot be tolerated." The old man spoke in a low voice, and the disciples behind him were silent. "Open the furnace, our sect master wants to refine the elixir here. Everyone, go to find all the materials for refining the Yugui soul pill at all costs." "Sect master, you are..." Several disciples did not understand what he meant. "Humph, our Yugui demon sect relies on the number of puppets to win. It seems that we have not been in Yushu territory for a long time, and a small Nangong Ting Feng has regarded us as sick cats. Then simply, we will refine the elixir here directly, and then capture some monks and refine them into puppets directly." Hearing this, everyone's expression was shocked, and at the same time, blood flowed through their hearts. Refining the elixir directly here, and then refining puppets. This is going to do a big thing. Is our Yugui demon sect going to rise too? For a moment, the crowd was excited and rushed into the depths of the 9 netherworld to search for spiritual medicine. And those casual cultivators, or righteous cultivators, had no idea that a disaster was about to come. I started my cultivation by picking up the immortal skills. Author, Banzwan Xianxia. Chapter 767. Fairy Mansion, in the pasture. Zuyun was at the edge of the small lake, with the unconscious old horse beside him. "Master, you must save the old horse." Lao Zhu was beside him with tears and runny nose, looking pitiful. Zuyun was extremely speechless and said, "Don't panic. Even if I can't save the old horse, at least his life will not be in danger. I learned from Huang Longshu that after the old horse passed through the wood spirit power, his vitality was no longer affected, but the remaining chaos power in his body prevented him from waking up. But now, he is already in the nascent soul stage, and the strength of the chaos force far exceeds that of the nightmare demon. It only takes a while to save the old horse. But as soon as he came over, Lao Tzu grabbed him and wiped the tears and nose from his protective clothing. Really? Really? Lao Tzu looked extremely excited. Beside him, Lao Jin also looked helpless and said, Lao Tzu, if you hold the master like this, how can you save him? Hearing this, Lao Tzu quickly took a step back with a flattering smile on his face. Master, please, please. Lao Jin was also speechless. Zhu Yun sighed, then walked to Lao Ma and put his hand between his eyebrows. The pure chaos power slowly entered it, and soon he felt a resistance. However, this resistance was very small, but after a moment, Zhu Yun's chaotic power drove him out of Lao Ma's consciousness. See. Almost. After Zhu Yun's chaotic power wandered around Lao Ma's body for a week, he found nothing unusual, so he withdrew, stood up and said to Lao Tzu. As soon as the words fell, Lao Ma sat up suddenly and shouted, Master, run! But in an instant, he discovered his surroundings. He was actually in a pasture, which meant, Master, have you made a breakthrough? Turning his head, he met Zhu Yun's eyes and couldn't help but be overjoyed. After feeling it carefully, I found that the aura on Zhu Yun's body was completely different. Yes, a breakthrough. It's safe now. You can have a good rest here. Zhu Yun patted the old horse, then exited the ranch with a smile and returned to the immortal mansion. Zhu Yun, I can go back to the medicine garden. Continuing to stay in the wood spirit pearl will not be of any help to me. At this time, Huang Longshu's voice sounded in Zhu Yun's mind. No need. Zhu Yun was immediately happy. Huang Longshu was forced to enter it because of him. No. Zhu Yun didn't hear anything unnatural in Huang Longshu's tone. He didn't know that after knowing that there was a chaos lotus growing in Zhu Yun's body, there was a nameless fear in his heart. Okay, then go back to the medicine garden. Zhu Yun said, walking to the medicine garden, his mind moved slightly, and a burst of green light appeared under his lower abdomen. Wherever the green light reaches, the figure of Huang Longshu suddenly appears. The surrounding elixirs rushed forward happily and danced around a yellow dragon tree. However, Zhu Yunbu turned into a metal spirit body and could not understand what they were talking about. But the excitement was beyond words, and he could still see it. Waving his hand casually, Zhu Yun decided to go to Xianxia to have a look. After learning the Chaos Dragon control technique, he wanted to try it to see if it had any effect on the little black dragon. After he left, Huang Longshu fell to the ground slumped. Old Shu, what's wrong with you? Did Zhu Yun suck you dry? The sight of blood is interesting. Huang Longshu, who has always been steady and mature and has lived for who knows how many years, rarely sees such a miserable look. What did you say? Huang Longshu said angrily, since everyone is here, let me tell everyone. From now on, you can no longer call Zhu Yun's name, you must call him, Master. Shui Jinseng was puzzled and raised a ginseng whisker and said, why? How old is he? I have lived for 10,000 years. Huang Longshu sneered and said, I don't want to bark if I like. Anyway, that's all I have to say about the old tree. From now on, I should also call him Master. Hong Yu was relatively stable, shaking the colorful leaves and said, Old tree, what happened? Huang Longshu shook his branch and said, it doesn't matter what happens. What's important is that you remember my words. Zhu Yun may achieve more in the future than our previous master. How is this possible? Zi Yuanko said, Old Shu, he is just a mortal monk. Compared with the immortal emperor, he is still too early. I don't know how long he can live. Huang Longshu said no more, not to mention anything else, he has one thing now that the immortal emperor will never be able to do in his lifetime. After saying that, he got into his own hole in the medicine garden without saying a word. All the elixirs looked at each other and looked towards the top of Sword Mountain. After a closer look, they discovered that Zuyun had undergone earth-shaking changes, and they suddenly stood stunned on the spot. Until, Zuyun jumped away from the top of the Sword Mountain, disappeared from their sight, and went to the Hualong Pond. Xiao He, come out quickly. Beside the pool, Zuyun was holding a dragon beating whip and kept whipping the dragon turning pool noodles. Coming. One day outside, 7 days inside the mirror. Xiao He popped up and looked much bigger. When he saw Zuyun, he swam forward with a smile on his face. He looked extremely well behaved and did not have the majesty that a real dragon should have. Master, what are your orders? Swimming to the edge of the pool, Xiao He lowered his head and said. No instructions. Zuyun chuckled, stretched out a finger and put it on Xiao He's forehead, saying, I just practiced a technique and wanted to show you some tricks. Xiao He was suddenly startled and cried mournfully, Master, please, I'm only so young, how can I compete with you? He finally saw that Zuyun was hiding a knife behind his smile. I thought he just wanted to make himself spit out some saliva. Just vomit, it's okay if you vomit dryly, it will only hurt your vitality a little, but you can recover quickly in the Hualong Pond. Can you compete with him? Are you kidding me? Have the ability. You put away the dragon whip and compete again. As soon as the idea came up, he saw that Zuyun had really put away the dragon beating whip, and the hand that was nodding his head suddenly turned into claws and grabbed him out of the pool. Master, what are you going to do? Xiao He was frightened. A picture suddenly appeared in his mind. It seems that when I was still an Arawana, I once saw someone pick up a fish in Lake Baiwa and just grab it and kill it for soup. Don't be afraid, Zuyun said with the smile still on his face, I told you to show off with me. Before Xiao He could react, Zuyun softly uttered one word. Drop. The power of chaos quickly condensed into a gray-white font in the air, and was printed on Xiao He's forehead. It was an ordinary word, but to Xiao He, it was tantamount to the pressure of heaven. Before Xiao He could react, the word surrender was already printed on Xiao He's forehead. Boom. Xiao He felt like 5 thunders were hitting his head, as if there were huge mountains above his head, trying to lower his head into submission. But in his instinct, the arrogance from the true dragon bloodline makes Xiao He continue to gather dragon power and resist at the risk of his life. Seeing this scene, Zuyun was also extremely surprised. He had no objection at all, he just wanted to try the Chaos Dragon control technique with Xiao He, but he didn't expect to see such an astonishing scene. When dealing with the dragon head, Zuyun had no choice but to use all his strength. Moreover, the dragon head has nothing to do with him. Even if he is completely suppressed to death, he will not have any emotional disturbance. But Xiao He is different. Deep in his heart, he really hopes that one day he can ride a dragon and fly in the sky. I came to him to try it because I wanted to have a deeper understanding of the mysterious technique of Chaos Dragon control technique. Know yourself and the enemy, and you can fight 100 battles without danger. It is rumored that the dragon clan has gone to the outer world of the spirit world, and he is going to go too. If we meet him in the future, what kind of conflict will Wan Yi have? With the dragon clan's temperament, who knows what can happen? Zuyun simply wanted to master the means in advance to save his life. I thought that Xiao He was the only one who could transform into a dragon, but now he was only as thick as his forearm, so he tried this technique on him and held it in his hand. But at the scene before him, he was afraid that Xiao He's neck would be crushed. Thinking of this, Zuyun quickly removed the word subject, and because he was somewhat affected by the counterattack, he took a few steps back. Call. Zuyun dispersed the remaining energy in his body and exhaled a breath of turbid air. When he looked at Xiao He in his hand, he found that he had passed out. Obviously, he suffered a lot of injuries. This little black guy is really stubborn. Zuyun frowned and sighed, knowing in his heart that this was definitely not what Xiaohe had intended. Perhaps, if he becomes stronger in the future, he will be able to control the power of his bloodline. He walked to the edge of the pool again, gently put Xiaohe into the pool, and then climbed over the sword mountain again and returned to the cave. Next, he is going to learn the spiritual talisman. I started my cultivation by picking up the immortal skills. Author, Banzuan Xianxia. Chapter 768. Zuyun had to make more of his own methods. Since the Yao realm, he had the method of making mysterious talismans many times, but he was suffering from lack of materials. Now that he has reached the realm, the talisman should also start to learn to master it. Moreover, Sun Suanhua also reminded him. After the nightmare monster escaped, Zuyun had to be on guard. Who knows if he would instigate and turn himself, a cultivator from the human race, into an invader. Although there are 3 demon kings who recognize the master, Lao Ma is seriously injured, Lao Zhu is not smart enough, and Lao Jing can't do it alone. At the same time, Aniao is afraid of the restrictions of Dongsheng realm, and he only has half of his soul left, and he is now on the island. As for the ancestral tree, in order to dissolve the devouring magic power in Zhu Feng's body, it has not yet fully recovered. Therefore, Zuyun plans to go deep into Dongsheng realm alone. Then he must have more methods. This point, he has deeply experienced when he left Lingjian sect for the first time. Sitting on the stone bed, Zuyun began to recall everything Tang Liwen had taught him about the talisman. The only difference between a talisman and an ordinary talisman is the material. In other words, the rest of the runes and the drawing methods are the same. But to make the spiritual power condense in the air and not disperse, and to be able to play a corresponding effect, this requires a very high level of control over the spiritual power. Only when you reach the nascent soul stage and the strength of the soul reaches a certain level, you will have such control. Zuyun had taken a lot of Yugui soul pills in his early years, and used the burning sky flame to dissolve the soul seals in them to nourish the soul, which made his strength far exceed that of people in the same realm. Oh right, Zuyun suddenly thought of Sun Qiniang at this time. Sun Qiniang is alone in Yusha realm, and I didn't help her to resolve the mark in her purple mansion. If she meets someone from the Yukui demon sect, will she? No, after this matter is over, I still have to go to Yusha realm. Although Yusha realm is relatively peaceful now, and the Yukui demon sect is not one of the 3 major demon sects, nothing is absolute. Wu Chideo died in Peepa realm, and Sun Qiniang is not a demon cultivator. What if someone is angry with Sun Qiniang for being a righteous cultivator, and she is only in the Jindan stage? Zuyun was immediately confused and it took him a long time to calm himself down. He didn't know that Sun Qiniang really became a puppet and was collected in the Huatian scroll and placed on Feng Anhe's body. And Feng Anhe will come back to find him after watching Nangong Tingfeng and others go to the spirit world. Putting these concerns aside, Zuyun began to concentrate on understanding the method of making spiritual talismans. In other words, how to make the spiritual power stay longer and more stable in the air. After several days, Zuyun suddenly stretched out his hand and pointed at the air in front of him. There was a burst of dragons and phoenixes dancing, and the gray and white color in the air suddenly formed a continuous rune pattern. When the rune was completed, Zuyun's eyes flashed, and the spiritual rune instantly turned into a fireball. Boom! The fireball exploded on the stone wall of the cave, and the sound echoed, buzzing in Zuyun's ears. It's done. Zuyun stood up from the ground with a happy face. There was still a fire in the air, constantly stimulating his nostrils, and the sound in his ears was like a mess, but it could not hide his excitement at the moment. Great, the fireball rune is done, now, try the firebird rune. Although he hadn't used the fireball rune for decades, as the first rune Zuyun had learned, the power and momentum of it made him remember it vividly. He calmed down, took a deep breath, and then pointed out with his finger. Chaos power was like ink, and his fingertips were like pens. As his fingers kept dancing, the rune pattern of the Firebird talisman also appeared. But before Zuyun finished drawing, the chaos power of the talisman head had already begun to dissipate. This was equivalent to the talisman drawn on the talisman paper, and the cinnabar on the talisman head suddenly faded, and the spiritual power could not function normally, thus forming a spell. The control of spiritual power is still a little poor. Chaos power is immortal power after all. Even if I have Chaos Lotus in my body, I am not strong enough to do such a delicate thing. Zuyun was not discouraged, but thought about the key. If the chaos power is not good, then, Firebird talisman, I just use fire spiritual power to draw it. Suddenly, Zuyun's eyes lit up. This is not a second choice. According to his previous experience of drawing talismans, the corresponding talismans must have corresponding spiritual power to charge the spirit, so that the talismans can exert cross-level attack power. He had used the power of chaos to charge the Firebird talisman, but as a result, after the talisman was used, Li Mo jokingly called it the Fast Bird talisman. The power did not increase, but the speed and the speed of the Firebird's formation were much faster. Zuyun did it as soon as he thought. Thinking back to the time when he took the Yukui soul pill to nourish his soul, wasn't it for the purpose of cultivating the mastery of spiritual power? Apart from anything else, Zuyun was still very confident in mastering any of the 5 spiritual powers. Moreover, no matter how complicated the drawing method of the Firebird talisman was, Zuyun had already mastered it by heart. Zuyun did it as soon as he said it, and walked out of the cave and came to the edge of the void. In the medicine garden, a group of spirit medicines immediately looked over. It seems that the master has become much stronger again. Huang Longshu said in a low voice, his tone full of awe. He almost witnessed Zuyun's growth with his own eyes. The immortal mansion can be said to be invincible in the lower world. It is impossible for anyone to attack it and threaten Zuyun. Moreover, the speed of time flow in the immortal palace will not affect one's lifespan, so Zuyun should be able to hide in it and practice all the time. But Zuyun rarely stayed for chi refining every time he went in and out. Except for the time when he broke through the foundation building stage at the beginning of Huangshi Mountain, Zuyun would no longer stay for such a long time at a time. Old tree, did you feel it? Zi Yuanko followed. Do you still need to feel it? Hongye smiled and said, the master's momentum is different when he walks. It is obvious that he has realized something. In connection with the previous movement, I think he has understood it clearly. Humph, an untimely cold snort sounded, and the spiritual medicines naturally knew that it was the blood ginseng. He said disdainfully, a bunch of flatterers. Why can't I see it? Huang Longshu laughed and said, that's because you are too young to understand. You said I'm young? I've lived for 10,000 years. The blood ginseng raised a ginseng beard in dissatisfaction. At this time, Zuyun had already completed the Firebird talisman with the fire spirit power transformed from the chaos force at the edge of the void. Talisman completed. Feeling that the breath of all the fire spirit power was restrained, Zuyun was delighted. But just like this, the Firebird talisman showed signs of self-explosion. Now, Zuyun couldn't laugh anymore. He knew very well how powerful this Firebird talisman was. If the Firebird talisman drawn on the talisman paper could kill a Jindan, then he is now in the nascent soul stage, and this Firebird talisman is definitely comparable to a nascent soul attack. If it exploded in the immortal mansion, not to mention whether he would be injured, those spirit medicines who were looking forward to it behind him would probably be affected. Thinking of this, Zuyun made a prompt decision and directly controlled the talisman to fly into the void. Clang! As soon as it entered the void, the talisman quickly took shape, and after a phoenix cry, it went straight through these ownerless chaotic forces and disappeared from Zuyun's sight. Zuyun was still in shock. It seemed that no matter whether he was practicing qi or trying any other means, he couldn't be distracted. The fire phoenix formed by the super level still had residual power. Zuyun couldn't imagine, if he drew the fire phoenix talisman, would it be powerful enough to kill the god transformation stage? But no matter how strong this thought was, Zuyun couldn't try it. There couldn't be a god transformation stage in the mortal world. He had to go to the spirit world to try it. Taking a deep breath, Zuyun immersed himself again. Using the spiritual power of a single system, he was enough to draw an intermediate spiritual talisman, which was enough to deal with the Demon King. Next, he would master the spiritual talismans of the other 4 systems, and then try the auxiliary talismans in Talisman Deo. Also in this void, an independent training ground, built of bluestone slabs, was extremely wide. The edge of the training ground was full of Jindan cultivators. In the middle of the training ground, 2 cultivators were fighting. The 2 showed their magical powers, and the color of the spiritual power in their hands kept changing. Occasionally, there would be gray and purple. Gray, that was the power of chaos. Purple, that was the power of thunder. Suddenly, a bell rang, and the 2 monks stopped at the same time, and stood side by side in front of the bell. Next to the bell was an old man in red, whose strength reached the peak of the late nascent soul stage. Yes, you 2 have made significant progress. You can enter this holy land to practice for a month next month. The 2 knelt down on the ground with joy on their faces. Thank you, Master. The old man nodded, and then said to the Jindan monks standing on the edge of the training ground, look, both of you are in the Jindan stage, your 2 brothers are much stronger than you, and when they reach the nascent soul stage, they can go to the outer world to practice. Let's see you. Before he finished speaking, a flame suddenly appeared in the sky. Everyone present had never seen such a scene before, and they all looked at it with attention. Even the old man was surprised, watching the flame appear and turn into a fire phoenix. Why did a fire phoenix appear in the Holy Land? The old man murmured, but how fast was the fire phoenix? By the time he reacted, the fire phoenix had already rushed down to the training ground. Clang! A phoenix cry? The fire phoenix had already swallowed up the 2 Jindan cultivators who were fighting earlier, turning them into ashes. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. I started my cultivation by picking up the immortal skills. Author, Banzuan Xianxia. Chapter 769. What did you say? A fire phoenix appeared in the Holy Land. An immortal old man stood up from his seat with a look of disbelief on his face. His name is Xianxia, the leader of the 5 Elements sect. The strength reaches the integration stage. Yes, sect master. The old man kneeling below was the master of the 2 monks who were annihilated by the fire phoenix. He said with a mournful face, the disciple has seen it with his own eyes. What about the fire phoenix? Xianxia sat back again. The fire phoenix is missing. Gone. Xianxia raised his eyebrows and said, you told me that a fire phoenix appeared in the Holy Land, and then the fire phoenix disappeared. Are you treating the sect leader as a fool? Disciples don't dare. This Yuanying was frightened. Every disciple of the 5 Elements sect must have 5 spiritual roots. But 5 spiritual roots are as scarce as those with single spiritual roots. Now that there were suddenly 2 missing, and no bones left, he could only report it to Xianxia truthfully. Sect master, all my disciples can testify that they saw it with their own eyes. The fire phoenix appeared at the end of the disciple's first martial arts performance. It was so fast that the disciple could not react at all. Xianxia's face was expressionless, and his expression had returned to calm, and he said, whether it was an accident or not, since an accident happened under your hands, hand over the Holy Land entrance order, and then go to the Jinfa Hall to accept the crime. These disciples of yours, This sect leader will assign the skills to other deacons. Thank you, sect master, for not killing me. This nascent soul cried with joy. Being alive is the best outcome. After he finished praying, he left a token on the place where he knelt, and then kneeled all the way out of the sect master's hall, heading towards the Genfa hall. Hunyuanzi, on the other hand, appeared in the school grounds in a flash. His eyes were like torches and he kept scanning the school grounds. After a breath, he looked at a corner of the school grounds. Such pure fire spiritual power does seem to be the work of the fire phoenix. However, the fire phoenix has not appeared in the world for a long time, and it is less frequent than the dragon clan in Tianweishan. Why does it suddenly appear in the Holy Land? Hunyuanzi raised his head and looked into the void. But no matter how he looked, he couldn't see through the fog condensed by the power of chaos in the void. A few days later, Zuyun has mastered all the intermediate and advanced talismans of the 5 series. Even the talismans on Tao of Talisman, which can be displayed with spiritual talismans, are all painted with great proficiency. Next, it's the fragment of heavenly talisman. He put away Tao of Talisman and took out fragment of Tianfu. This is an heirloom of the Lin family. Although it is a fragment, there are mysterious restrictions on it. When Zuyun was in the elixir formation stage, he could only open the 2 pages above. They are the Jushin Thunder Talisman and the Ice Tornado Scroll. The Sky Gathering Thunder Talisman still needs to be learned. Although its power is relatively small, it has natural restraint against demonic cultivators. There is also the Juyu land in the spiritual world, which means that there are also high-level demonic cultivators who may still be able to use it. Zuyun thought for a moment and then began to draw the Heaven Gathering Thunder Talisman. Although it is not the 5 elements spiritual power, it is not difficult to use only thunder spiritual power. A few days later, Zuyun had mastered it. Next is the Ice Tornado. At that time, Zuyun infused it with ice spiritual power. But this time, Zuyun plans to try to fuse the 2 spiritual powers. By continuously drawing spiritual talismans in the past few days, Zuyun has become more and more skilled in mastering spiritual power, so he came up with this idea. I just want to think about it, but it is very difficult to do it. On the first step, Zuyun was stumped. He can control wind spiritual power and ice spiritual power at the same time. But it is impossible to control these 2 spiritual powers at the same time to draw them together. Although I only have ice spiritual power now, it is powerful enough to be used, but after arriving in the spiritual world, the world will be more open, and there will definitely be unheard of and extremely mysterious magical powers. If I stand on my own, I am afraid that the enemy will eat me. Big loss. You have to learn 2 kinds of spiritual power, or even 3 or 4 kinds, but now, time is running out, so we can only give up for the time being. Zuyun decided to use only ice spiritual power to draw the ice tornado first. This is much simpler. Around the same time as Jushin Lei Talisman, Zuyun was also familiar with controlling it. It's done, let's look at the 3rd page when you have time. Zuyun lowered his head and glanced at the fragment of Tianfu, put it back in the cave, and then left the immortal mansion. A month inside the mirror, less than 5 days have passed outside. Zuyun looked far away and saw that Longmei Mountain was still the same as before. It still looks like a dragon, but it no longer seems to be alive like before. It seems that the trapped dragon formation has been broken, but the nightmare demon has also escaped. But since this is the ancestral land of the dragon clan, it is obviously extraordinary. Unfortunately, I don't have time to find out what's going on here. I need to go to the next place as soon as possible. Go to the ancestral land of the demon clan to meet the demon emperor. Demon king, only the clan leaders of the 12 major demon clans can bear this name. For example, Qiuyu, the leader of the 9-tailed demon fox clan, can only be called the fox demon king. This was what the master of the Yaoang Valley specially warned him, because he was afraid that he would meet the 12 major demon clans and call him by the wrong name, which would only lead to misunderstandings. The ancestral land of the Dragon Clan borders the Horse Clan, Sheep Clan, and Dog Clan. If you are not familiar with the other two tribes, why not go to the Horse Clan first? The ancestral land of the Horse Clan is located on a vast grassland, adjacent to the Ox Clan, Sheep Clan, and Rabbit Clan. There are dozens of species of horse monsters living here together, such as the two-horned horse monster, the one-horned horse monster and the royal thorn horse monster. According to the owner of the valley, there are even spirit horses surviving in this ancestral land. In his words, if you don't come to Dongshenjing to see it with your own eyes, you will never know what a wonderful place Dongshenjing is. Zuyun chuckled and started on his way. He jumped up and started flying along the ridge of Dragon Vein Mountain. As long as you fly to the tail of the dragon and see a piece of grassland, it is the ancestral land of the horse tribe. And just as Zuyun was flying, the horse demon king was meeting with a human monk. You said, someone invaded our Dongsheng realm? First, they made a big fuss in the dragon clan's ancestral land, and then they said they were going to other ancestral lands to kill demons and attain enlightenment. Emperor Ma looked at the nascent soul monk not far in front of him, and saw that the protective clothing on his body was in tatters, and his breath was even more sluggish. It was obvious that he had gone through a battle and had escaped from death. I don't dare to hide the Demon King, the monk said with his hands raised. I saw with my own eyes that he threatened a thorn horse Demon King in the Demon King realm and injured him when he disobeyed. I couldn't bear to see anyone from the Demon Clan. When I was humiliated, I came to my aid. Who would have thought that the monk not only refused to show mercy to me, but also took the opportunity to attack me and seriously injured me. In desperation, I had no choice but to flee, and I happened to escape here, so I thought of fighting with him. Demon King informs you. Huh, upon hearing this, the Demon King stood up suddenly, and it could be seen from his eyes how angry he was at this time. But after all, he was in the realm of the Demon Emperor, so he restrained his anger to some extent. He said, they all say that the human race is insidious and cunning. I have lived for nearly 10,000 years and have seen countless human races. You human race often say that everything must be done. Talk about evidence. What evidence do you have to prove that what you said is true? The Demon Emperor Mingjian, the monk said seriously, taking out a thorn from his storage bag. I fought my life to get this, and I got slapped by that monk more because of it. After saying that, he threw the thorn over, ignoring the Demon King, whose face turned gloomy for a moment. After the Demon King took it, a murderous aura filled the sky. This is the thorn on the neck of my thorn horse. Human being, before the truth is determined, I want you to stay here as a guest. What do you think? The words were polite, but the monk knew that this was house arrest in disguise. But he didn't panic at all, and even the old god was there, saying, I'm so happy. That man is a shame to the human race. I can't wait to see him die at the hands of the Demon Emperor. Ha ha ha, the horse Demon King laughed loudly, and then raised his head to the sky and roared, all the clan, in the realm of the Demon King, meet me as soon as possible. The sound came out in the distance, and within 100 miles, countless horse demons that had transformed into their true form, were either playing around or sleeping, all woke up. After identifying the direction, they all ran towards this place. An hour later, in front of the Demon King, there are already dozens of horse demons that have transformed into human forms. All of them are in the realm of Demon Kings. Your Majesty the Demon King, all 34 Demon Kings in the clan are here, please give me orders. A horse demon who was at the peak of the late Demon King stood up and said loudly. Okay, the Demon King swept his gaze and said in a deep voice, you stay and take care of this distinguished guest, and the rest of you will follow me to kill the Dragon Clan's ancestral land. I started my cultivation by picking up the immortal skills. Author, Xianxia. Chapter 770. Seeing that there was only one demon king left in the entire horse demon ancestral land, the nightmare demon secretly rejoiced. In order to obtain the heavenly book, practice human skills, and avoid the demon tribulation and directly become a saint, Nightmare Demon has lived in the Peepa realm for many years, and returned to the ancestral land of the Dragon Clan after reaching a deal with Tang Liwen. After the secret realm of the Book of Heaven was opened, he went to the Peepa realm. Unexpectedly, Tang Liwen was actually waiting for him. I just didn't expect that I would run into Zuyun as soon as I returned to the ancestral land of the Dragon Clan. But before that, the Nightmare Demon had regarded the Dragon Clan's ancestral land as its base camp, so the Nightmare Demon naturally understood the Horse Demon. How do you call this Demon King? Nightmare is good at pretending, and said familiarly with a kind smile. Ma-san. Ma-san is the strongest demon cultivator in the clan except the Horse Demon Emperor, and he is also the most trusted clan member by the Horse Demon Emperor. The reason why he was kept in the ancestral land was actually to guard against the Nightmare Demon. Ma-san knows it, and Nightmare Demon also knows it. The Nightmare Demon doesn't care that his identity will be recognized by Ma-san. On the contrary, he plans to attack and kill Ma-san at this time, and then pass it on to the human race. In this way, Zuyun, who has just arrived in Dongsheng realm, will become the target of the entire demon clan. Fellow deist Ma-san, Nightmare Demon's eyes flashed as he said, that boy is cunning and insidious. He may have an ulterior motive in coming to Dongsheng realm. From what I see, you should contact the other 10 demons who are in charge of Dongsheng realm clan, take action against them at the same time to avoid future troubles. Oh! Ma-san's eyes shone brightly as he looked at the Nightmare Demon and said, why do you say this, fellow Taoist? He is obviously a monk of the human race, but he only has enmity with our horse race. I think it would be a little bit to use this reason to unite other races to deal with a human race. It doesn't make sense. Fellow deist Ma-san, it's because you don't understand our human race, Nightmare Demon said seriously. There are good and bad people, and that kid hurt a demon king of the Ma demon clan as soon as he came. He must have evil intentions. If you can deal with the horse tribe today, you may not be able to deal with other races in the future. Ma-san said meaningfully, he is also from your human race. Listening to what you mean, is it possible that we are going to kill the human race and start a full-scale war? Fellow deist Ma-san is serious. The Nightmare Demon laughed sarcastically and said, I am also a human race after all, and I came to inform you of the horse race out of kindness. I really can't stand that kid, he has lost the face of our human race. Such a person, let alone be placed in Peepa, even if you reach the Yasha realm, everyone will kill you. The Demon Emperor will naturally make a decision on this matter. Since fellow Taoist is a distinguished guest, you must remember that you are an honored guest. Ma-san's big eyes looked straight at the Nightmare Demon, and he already had great doubts about the Nightmare Demon in his heart. Even Nightmare Demon himself didn't notice it. When he told the Demon King that Zuyun had hurt the Demon King, he was already suspected. Because all the Demon Kings of the Horse Demon clan are in this 1/3 of an acre of their ancestral land. Where can there be Demon Kings? It's no wonder they were sent there thousands of years ago to enter the Demon Refining Tower. The news of the incident at the Demon Refining Tower did not reach Dongsheng realm, so they naturally had no way of knowing. Therefore, the Nightmare Demon told the truth about a Horse Demon King, but he did not expect that this was actually a loophole. Even now, he still doesn't know that Ma-san doesn't believe everything he says. What fellow deist Ma-san said is that since the Demon Emperor has gone into battle in person, he really can't help but worry about it down here. The Nightmare Demon was extremely unhappy, but Xiao Ren was planning something big. Seeing Ma-san leave alone, he couldn't help but feel moved in his heart. If I hadn't been seriously injured by the backlash from the trap dragon formation, you, a mere horse demon, wouldn't even be able to receive a palm from me. The Nightmare Demon didn't move, he decided to wait until Ma San was most relaxed before making a sneak attack. However, he cannot kill Ma San. Instead, he severely injured him, and then deliberately left a little message to arouse the anger of the entire horse clan, and even the entire Dongsheng realm, towards Zhu Yun. At this time, Ma San came to a simple house. This is the residence of the Demon Emperor, and there is an ancient totem pole inside that can directly communicate with the Demon Emperor. The totem pole is no more than a person tall. The lower part is a column and the upper part is a horse's head. Ma San put his hand on the horse's head, concentrating his demon power. In just a moment, the voice of the Demon King of Horse came from the horse's head. Ma San, what did you find? Ma San whispered, Master Demon Emperor, this distinguished guest, there is a ghost. The horse Demon King at the other end of the totem pole said, are you sure? Confirmed, Ma San said, but he is trying to get me to contact the other demon clans and go together to kill the human monks in the dragon clan's ancestral land. Apparently, that's it. There are human monks in the ancestral land of the dragon clan, but the two of them may be in the same group. Maybe they want to lure the tiger away from the mountain and have other plans. You should be careful and wait until the emperor captures the human monk in the ancestral land of the dragon clan. Stay and return immediately. As soon as the Ma Demon King's voice fell, and before Ma San could respond, a strong wind came from behind. A huge amount of spiritual power blasted over. Ma San exclaimed and turned around quickly, only to see a palm filled with gray-white spiritual energy slapping towards him. Ma San is not weak, but he is already at a disadvantage after being attacked by a sneak attack. It is impossible to escape, and it is impossible to transform into his own body. He can only deal with it head-on. Boom! With a loud noise, Ma San's body broke through the wall, fell heavily to the ground, and spat out a mouthful of blood. Human race. What do you want? Ma San didn't expect that the nightmare demon would dare to attack him. And, he took advantage of the fact that his mind was connected to the totem pole and he was unable to respond with all his strength. If not, how could I be injured? What do you want to do? Ha ha ha, you demons, you are so arrogant that you want to transform into our human form? You are the ones who are plotting evil. You are not a good horse, you are not a good demon, what do you want to be? Die. The nightmare demon spoke completely in the tone of the human race. As soon as the voice fell, another palm was slapped directly, and Ma San's legs were blasted into powder. The Demon King is far away, and he will fall into my friend's trap later. Even if he rushes back, he can only wait for half of your corpse. Hee, next, we will deal with the rabbit tribe. After the nightmare demon finished speaking, he immediately dodged, as if he was in a hurry. In the air, the breath of spiritual power suddenly subsided, and the surroundings returned to silence. Damn it! Feeling the severe pain in his lower body, Ma San crawled towards the totem pole with difficulty. He didn't know that the scene was completely under the eyes of the nightmare demon. And this is what the nightmare demon wants to see. Ma San, what happened? When Ma San's hand touched the totem pole again, the voice of the Ma Demon King rang out. Master Demon King, be careful, the two humans are in the same group. Ma San was out of breath, and every word he said would affect his injuries, causing him extreme pain. What? You were ambushed? Over there, the Ma Demon King screamed in shock. The reason why he left Ma San in the ancestral land was that he saw that Ma San was much stronger than the nightmare demon. But how could he know that after the nightmare demon practiced the 5 elements Chaos Sutra, he could switch between the two realms and power auras at will? Either the Demon King realm or the early nascent soul realm. But the power of chaos and even pure spiritual power, when cultivated to the extreme, is even more like immortal power. Even if the nightmare demon has problems in cultivation, it is almost invincible in the same level as Zhu Yun, and Ma San has no time to distract himself, so he naturally succeeds. The human race is really insidious and cunning. The horse demon king gritted his teeth, attracting the sidelong glances of the demon king's subordinates beside him. They all stepped forward, wanting to know what happened. Knowing that Ma San was seriously injured and the murderer was the distinguished guest, they were all furious and planned to go back to help Ma San avenge. Go, 3 people, be careful when you see him. The human race is insidious and cunning, and Ma San was fooled by him. Remember, if you can capture him alive, don't kill him. This emperor, let him taste the pain of our Thorn Horse clan, the pain of thousands of thorns. When it came to the last word bitter, the horse demon king's momentum soared into the sky, rushing towards the sky, as if to break through the 9 heavens. Zhu Yun, who was almost at the end of the Dragon Vein Mountain, naturally saw this scene. What a strong momentum, could it be that the Demon King and the Nightmare Demon are fighting? Thinking of this, Zhu Yun didn't think much and sped up. After a stick of incense, he finally saw the dragon's tail. At the same time, he also felt that he was not too far away from the momentum. He was delighted. Not only could he kill the Nightmare Demon, but he could also communicate with the Horse Demon King. If the old horse wakes up, he will also ask the old horse's wishes, whether he is willing to return to the ancestral land of the horse tribe and return to the tribe. But before Zhu Yun's smile was put away, the shocking momentum suddenly changed direction and fell from the sky, like a mountain pressing towards Zhu Yun.